Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City tick. Nothing ticks better than Pundit Friday, which we're about to begin here in the WNHH studio, with the number one pundits in the media universe. Babs Ivy is off at a big thinkers conference. So we will be able to get some big ideas from her next week. I hope she's having a great time. Where is she? She's
at the Nantucket Project.
Nantucket Projects, wow. And Nora Rodriguez Reyes also just called in, not available because that was too bad because we got some pretty big issues involving the Latino community this week, but Harry Jost will fill that in. So Harry Jost is in the studio. He's about to walk in. He's our station manager, heavy D devil, Trump devotee, bravest man in New Haven, Harry Trump.
Harry the Brave.
We got Markeisha Ricks, the flyest news hunter-gatherer this side of Fleet Street, star New Haven Independent reporter. Great to have you around.
Happy Friday, people.
And then, and Harry, are we on Facebook Live yet? Oh, we are. Okay. And there's somebody else here, right?
Back from
the guy who made
Where
morning
is
drive
he?
time for local hip hop a thing.
Yes.
I'm talking about the conqueror of cannabis commerce,
Oh!
the bright light in the New Haven night, the straight shooter from Bermuda, the mystical and metaphorical man on the money, the tackler of tempestuousness and titan of temperance, banisher of bilious bullies, prince of pleasantries and punctuality, sorcerer of scientific solution, blessed beatboxer of banksters and bacchanalians, the just-in-time judge of jackals and japery, the sentinel of serenity, sincerity, and salvation, the poobah of unparalleled political passion and perspicacity, the righteous reaper of restitution,
Yes.
the exalted expostulator of
I always
extemporaneous
speak one word,
exegesis,
Strike
the griot of the grassy knoll, the conquistador of cussing criminals, keeper of the cure, weaver of wellness and wisdom, mellifluous and meritocratic miner of melody, plow driver of peace, the driver out of demons, discord, and dissonance, the optimizer of opulence and opportunity, the undertaker of unfiltered utterance, the erudite earl of ergonomics, the liberated lion of lucidity, the maniacal monarch of mercy, the blistering barbecuer of brain-dead bozos, the alchemist of assonance and alliteration, the zealous zapper of xenophobia,
Oh, this is the long form one. I haven't heard this
the
in a while.
quintessential clipper of quotable quackery, the grandee of grandiloquence and gastronomics, a prize protected against pusillanimity, the distinguished duke of diplomacy and détente, the king of conspiracy concoction, deacon of the dozens, bodhisattva of battle rap, missionary of modesty, mesmerizer of the masses, shaman of the shoreline, the wise guy, the sultan of spit, West Indian wimp, whisperer of wonk, emperor of explosive exposition, esteemed elucidator of ebonics, top-tier talent from Trinidad and Tobago, daptone deliverer of decency, maximum media maestro, bodacious, bold-faced barista, Bob, chess master of chill, primo practitioner of pop, prestidigitation. Beyond just some honorable high priest of hip-hop, right reverend of rapture, reigning raconteur of riffitude, sanctified slayer of the slow-witted, never late for supper, decorated, dazzling, indefatigable dunker and drive, the dinner dishes, maximum mixologist, Joe Ugly of the Joe Ugly Show in the morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, now that we got Harry in the studio,
Harry Jost.
thanks for setting us up.
In case no one ever knew what the heck he looked like, this is the
Everybody
guy.
knows what Harry looks like.
We got to get down to business. We're going to talk about news of the last week.
There is business.
Yes.
I got the wrong mouse.
Is he moving your mouse?
For
Who moved my mouse?
You took the mouse out. That's why I didn't have the right mouse. We're going to start the show with an audio file, folks. There was some news. Everyone was talking about the Abt Foundation this week, not just because of the overdoses on the green, but because there's an ongoing debate about what to do about addiction in our community and people coming from far and wide, Waterbury in one hand, Willimantic in the other, Hartford, to get drug treatment in New Haven, specifically methadone. And a lot of overdosing and just activity on the green that people feel is causing a big problem. Joe Ugly does not agree with that. But in any case, there's been a really interesting discussion this week, including a hearing at the Board of Ed in which the Abt Foundation, which runs a methadone clinic on Congress Avenue and on Long Wharf, and has a different way of dealing with addicts from everyone else in the state, which is kind of an interesting way of dealing with addicts. But as a result, because they're the only ones that do it, we get all these people coming here, and they've come under criticism from the mayor and top police officers and community people, not only questioning their model, which is a fair argument on both sides, but questioning whether they're taking responsibility for the stuff that happens near a school and on the green as a result. So the police arrested a shoplifter on Broadway at the Yale bookstore. And she started telling them how she comes from Waterbury, the Abt Foundation, to get her methadone. That's why she comes to New Haven every day. And she had a pretty blunt conversation with Antonio Reyes, the assistant police chief.
Mhm.
Let's listen in that conversation because I want to see what you folks think about it. Why don't you listen at home now, too?
All right, today's August 30th. I'm here. I'm over in downtown next to Yale Bookstore. We just made an arrest of 2 individuals from Waterbury. And I just want to sort of memorialize our conversation with one of the individuals here. She's a female. She's from Waterbury. We're not going to name her. But she wants to go on record to sort of talk about some of the issues that we're dealing with here in New Haven from her perspective. And we want her voice to be heard. And she's someone that wants to get help. She's someone that's really trying to fight her addiction. And she's coming here to New Haven to get services from the App Foundation. So thank you for talking to me.
You're welcome.
And so where are you from?
Waterbury, Connecticut.
Waterbury, correct. And why are you here in New Haven today?
I come to New Haven to go to the App Foundation for methadone.
Okay. How often do you come?
Monday through Saturday.
Okay. Why can't you get services in Waterbury? Why don't you go to Waterbury?
Well, initially I did go to Waterbury, but Waterbury is stricter with regard to their tox screens. If you come positive for anything outside of methadone, they detox you, or you're no longer able to be a client. Whereas APT doesn't. I mean, they do tox screens, but regardless of what you're positive for, they really barely have a conversation with you. It's just you're positive, okay, bye-bye. And you still can get dosed, and you still have no issue going. There's really no kind of disciplinary
or restriction. Now, I imagine that if you're coming here, you feel like you're getting adequate help from the App Foundation here in New Haven?
No, I don't feel that way. In fact, I am not getting adequate help, and as a result of that, have made appointments with a psychiatrist and a doctor because you don't even have to meet with a counselor at that. In fact, you're not even assigned a counselor at the App Foundation.
Really?
You used to be assigned a counselor for each client, and now if you go in and for some reason you have to meet with a counselor, you just kind of wait for whoever is available. So there is no one-on-one sessions.
So when was the last time that you spoke to someone to talk about the progress of your addiction and your how you're doing?
I initiated a conversation last week to let them know that I was making appointments outside of App Foundation because I wasn't getting the services I needed there.
Really? Yeah. Okay. So how long have you been coming here to New Haven to get services from the App Foundation?
Oh, for a long time. Yeah, I signed back up in November, but prior to that I had been on for a year, went off, on for a year, went off.
Do you feel that, well, let's talk about, first of all, the whole methadone. Do you feel that that's helped you in your addiction?
I think it has, because I'm not using heroin anymore, not on the streets trying to, having to buy heroin and be in that situation. So with that regard, yes. But when I signed up at the clinic, I thought that it would be more than just getting your methadone and leaving.
Okay. Are you using any other substances right now?
Right now, no.
No? So you're just on methadone?
I feel like I need to be on something for like anxiety or...
So they're not providing you that, right? They're not providing you any counseling, any case management to sort of see what your progress is and to help you wean off that particular drug in order to.
And in fact, if you do want to wean off, let's say you want to detox, they try to convince you not to.
Okay. What do you mean?
Like, let's say I go in and I say I'd like to start detoxing. They will say, well, we don't think you're ready. You haven't been on it long enough.
But how long have you been on it?
Since November.
Okay.
Which is like almost a year.
And so they discourage you from getting off of it,
yeah.
But they're really not monitoring you in any way to determine whether or not you're ready for it.
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. And what happened here today? Why did you come in contact with us?
I came in contact with you because of a person I was with, I guess, was stealing out of the Yale bookstore. I separated from him because he asked me as we were going in.
And where's he from?
I actually don't. I think he's from New Haven.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Do you know if he goes to the App Foundation?
I don't think he's on methadone. I'm not positive.
So it's just somebody you met here?
No, I just happened to run into him on the green, and he knows my husband.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your candor and your receptiveness and your willingness to be candid about what's going on. All right.
You're welcome.
I wish you well with your addiction, and hopefully,
Thank you.
you know, you get on the path and you get the services you need. All right.
I'm trying to.
Okay. Thank you.
That was Assistant Police Chief Antonio Reyes. He was interviewing a woman who had been picked up for shoplifting, and had she told a story about coming from Waterbury every day to go to the App Foundation Clinic in New Haven, the only one that she knows of in the state, that would give her methadone because her urine tests positive for Xanax, and they have a different approach from other methadone clinics about if you have dirty urines. And then she spoke about why she felt she wasn't getting the help she needed because she felt they don't stress as much counseling. There's a whole lot to unpack there. It comes right to the heart of the discussion we're having in New Haven now about how best to deal with drug addiction, how to be a humane city that cares about people, but how best to help people, and as well how to deal with the resulting public safety, public health, and just public order challenges that come with it. So you're listening to Dateline New Haven's Pundit Friday on WNHH FM, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live stream, newhavenpin.org. So you folks have listened quietly. Weigh in. What'd you think when you heard that?
So I was hearing a few different things because it sounds like, one, there's an issue of maybe a standardization of how they decide, because so many people do come to New Haven to seek methadone treatment because possibly in other places in the state they have stricter rules about allowing them to receive that treatment. If what App Foundation is doing in terms of saying no matter what you can receive the treatment and that's effective, like there should be some knowledge about whether that's an effective approach to treating it. Yes. And if it is, then these other clinics should change their rules.
So
then
I pursued that. Okay.
Also, I have a few thoughts because I felt like you said there's a lot to unpack.
She's cheating off my notes.
On top of that, and I'm bombed because I ain't got no notes. I'm just kidding. No, and also, so if you make it easier for people to get the treatment, make it more available in the places that they live so they don't have to come to New Haven. I don't mind them coming to New Haven, but it's also a big burden for them to come to New Haven. Like if she's coming here 6 of the 7 days of the week, when does she go to work?
She doesn't go to work.
But maybe she could go to work if she,
right.
you know, maybe be a more productive person instead of being somebody who's spending their days
right.
wherever they are outside of their community. And then on top of that, like, it also sounds like there's a need for wraparound services beyond just methadone treatment. Like whatever these other services, and this is the problem with healthcare in general, whether you have diabetes or you have a heart condition, that if you don't have access, you can't get all of the things that help keep you compliant with the things that you're supposed to be doing. And that's what I'm hearing.
Joe Ugly, were there any notes left?
Yeah, actually, to echo what Markeisha was just saying, and with evidence, there was a report recently in a prison system and identifying how, for example, Germany, how they incarcerate their prisoners. We will never do it like that in this country because we think they will let their prisoners, even some of them, even have keys to go in and out of their own cells. Some of them, though, there are no walls you can look out and see. Now, the way we look at that in this country, it's like no. However, based on the study, it shows that they have little to no return.
No recidivism.
In
Because in Germany, the punishment is being away from your community. It's
exactly.
not all the things that happen once you come in contact with the criminal justice system. Right. Your being taken out of society is your punishment.
Exactly.
And you actually get treatments and other things.
And when people go back to society,
they're better people.
They're better people. They're productive citizens in Germany. So I look at this situation the same way. On the face of it, it's like, well, if she can get drugs free, yeah, that's a problem, you know, and like Markeisha said. However, are there wraparound services for her to extend on the help? Maybe what the foundation was, the App Foundation, maybe what they're doing is effective, but it just needs a little bit more to expand on it.
Yeah, so I pursued those questions. I wrote an article about this. I spoke to the head of the App Foundation. I spoke to the Hill Health Center, which has a much different approach. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to the state about what you're allowed to do. And the reason, I mean, Markeisha, I think, hit on a really central policy point. If App does it right, but nobody else in the state does it, then everyone from the state's going to come here, and we're going to have a zillion people needing methadone coming here, making it harder for them to get the help they need because they have to travel far, and it concentrates everything here, and a lot of dealers show up, and there's a tenant drug trade and seen on the green. But what I found out was that there's differences of opinion among experts of how best to do drug treatment. And both opinions are considered legitimate opinions about how best to help people. So Hill Health and others think that, yes, you need methadone for opioid abusers, but if they're on Xanax too, you quickly get them off the Xanax because they feel that there's actually more danger to their health combining the two.
Well,
Whereas APT believes, based on other science, that it's important if they're on the Xanax to also, or they're called benzos, it's a class of drugs for anti-anxiety. They think it's important that you get the methadone because the methadone deals with opiate addictions, and now with fentanyl, it can kill you. So even though there might be some risks about interaction, they feel the bigger risk is that the person will die because they're not getting help for the opiate addiction, and therefore it's best to also give them the methadone. Now, because they're the only ones who believe that, that's why everyone comes here. But there's a second issue. They also believe, this woman wanted to get off. They try to talk people out of getting off before 3 to 5 years because they say the research shows that if you've been an opiate user, you need 3 to 5 years on methadone before you can have long-term recovery without relapsing. And in fact, some people have it their whole life. There's a difference of opinion among others in the field. They say that's true sometimes, especially if you've been a heroin addict for a long time. But if you haven't been for a long time, you don't need those 3 to 5 years. And like at Hill Health, they put much more of an emphasis on getting you other kinds of therapy, behavioral health theory, counseling, that's they believe can help get you off. They also believe they have to be proactive if they see that Xanax in your urine because they feel there's, and I won't go into the details here, there's a reason with no bad motives that a lot of people are getting Xanax who shouldn't be getting it when they're getting methadone. And that's because people who prescribe Xanax don't have access to information about using methadone. There's a good reason for that, but it has unintended consequences. And thirdly, some are accusing APT, because they're making a lot of money now, of being greedy. They just want to keep everyone on methadone. They claim to make a lot of money on methadone. And in fact, I looked at some reports. They increased when they get other funding cuts. This new approach to methadone over the past bunch of years has increased their operating margin to 12% to make up for some of those costs. And they've increased their patient load quadrupled in like the last bunch of years. 4 times as many people come down, so over 4,000 than used to. However, to be fair to them, I know a lot of the people there and in that field, they believe that's the best way. It's just a difference of opinion. Some people believe it hooks them on a new drug. Other people think this isn't a drug. It doesn't get you high. It's what is a maintenance for a health problem. Other people say, yes, it's a health problem, but in fact, you're not helping them by not getting off sooner. So it's an honest debate that because New Haven's the place where a big institution is promoting this one idea that's different from others, we have everyone coming here in a flourishing illegal drug trade around a lot of health problems. Harry, did you have any thoughts on that when you listen to that?
Well, I just feel I'm one of those people who feels that you're just hooking them on methadone, and you see people just live off of this for years. What do we do about those people when we know that this is now their drug of choice?
Now, this is something there actually is consensus in the medical community. They think you're wrong. They say that methadone, it's a health problem that for some people, the question becomes, can you get some of them off methadone? Some people say, and there are a lot of articles written about this, people leave productive lives on methadone, and it's unlike when they're on heroin and chasing that high and not doing it in a safe way. It's the maintenance they need, just like some people might need cannabis for pain problems, or other people have other kinds of mental health problems that they use. And I'm a person who doesn't like to be on any drugs, right? And I'm scared of them, but the experts disagree with this.
Methadone are two totally different.
Yeah.
No, but what I think he's trying to say is
I know, but
it's maintenance.
Them, you can't.
And
but it's still maintenance at the end of the day.
I think when it comes to the issue of methadone, like what, at least from the big hearing that we had here at City Hall, is that what some of the people in the field are saying is that this addiction we need to treat like chronic illness, right? And just like if you have diabetes, you have to take your diabetes medicine every day.
Correct.
I have high cholesterol, so I have to take that every day. It's a maintenance drug. It keeps the plaque from growing in my heart so I don't have a stroke and die.
Right.
So just like that, it's like somebody can take methadone as a maintenance thing. The problem I have is why can't they get that as close to where they live? Like, so they can go off just like those of us who have chronic illnesses and take medication for can go get them, or have our doctor do our injections, or whatever it is that we need every day to go to work.
Is that either
and not just
No,
work
but
or whatever other
app
thing
is
that
the
we have
only
to
one who
do.
believes this is the best approach because others don't agree, or communities aren't going to let other
But
clinics
this is
operate
the
this
thing,
way.
though. Like this, not that anybody needs to be ashamed of going to seek treatment for anything, but this should be so seamless in communities that it's not any different from me going to a health clinic to go get a checkup.
What is
it
the
shouldn't be
success
any
story
different.
in this?
Like nobody should know I'm going to get methadone treatment. It should just be a thing that I go do, and then I go off about my day.
Right. And when you look at this, you're getting a lot of
what other numbers? Do we have any numbers?
That's the other thing.
I don't have the numbers, but I do
getting a
know
lot
that
of
everybody who
opinions, however.
studied it says that in general, methadone is a good idea. But where they disagree is a point Harry brought up. A lot of experts do believe that you can wean a lot of people
But
off.
to Harry's point, like I would like to know what APS Foundation's numbers say about their success rates.
Correct.
What Hill Health Center says about their success rates. What the other clinics within it, because the reality is if they're doing it a different way, they probably also have different results.
And
like
then,
what are
and
your
then,
results?
And then what do they consider?
And
a
what are you
success?
trying to achieve? Exactly.
Right,
Like what is
right.
the outcome? So everybody has all these opinions and I'm sure they're based on something. But like what are they based on? What is the success rate at the APS Foundation?
And then they can have defining
and what is
success. And other people define it as using behavioral health. It means like getting counseling to deal with the root of the problem that's bringing you to the drug or your other life problems you have to cope with, so that even if you're on the methadone, why are you still going back for the Xanax like this woman?
Absolutely.
And,
so you have other issues that you have to drill down to that somebody might be self-medicating around. Also, what you have is a situation where the Hill community feels like they're overburdened because of the number of people who come into their community. But at the same time, they're probably a community that also realizes that people who are abusing drugs are, if you're not abusing drugs, you consider those people criminals.
Correct.
And that they're bringing harm to your community when somebody else is saying, no, these people are people who are just like you. They're us.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like those of us who have people in our family who have addiction problems. We don't want to see them carted off to jail. We want to see them get help, get back on their feet, and move on with their lives.
But I think you put it correct when you said that it's, when we started off and you said, what is the support? The different elements that is in place to help someone. These are people who are literally sick. I listen to this woman and I don't think she's sick. She don't sound like someone who.
She sounds like somebody who could have a whole productive life if she didn't spend every day of the week almost coming to Nathan.
So
she's like, I could get my things. I could go see my therapist.
Right.
And whatever like other things that we're treating, we can work on that together. And I can go off and do something else.
It's just, like you said, for like you have your cholesterol medicine and I take for diabetes. So, we should look at health issues a lot different without all the stigmas we put on it. This is why we have problems that just keep branching off into so many different directions.
But you see, addiction is a totally different thing than you having to take diabetes.
But it's still
medicine.
a maintenance is what
Right?
she's coming for. That's the point.
But you want to just make it a maintenance thing, but it isn't just a maintenance thing. This is addiction, right? And if you look at all those places where they have these clinics, does it help actually the
but that's what's our
community?
point.
But I think that's what you're saying is
environment?
that it does help.
It does
that
help.
people can go off and have productive lives.
And that's what I want to see. I want to see those numbers of how many people actually go off and lead
productive lives.
lives. That they have jobs. They have,
and that's
not
why
just
Harry,
people who are taking the bus from Waterbury.
Right. So Harry, that's why
here.
I started off when I give the example of the German prison versus the U.S. prison, because that was that was hard data. And before, now the head of prisons in Pennsylvania, and I don't want to drift from the topic, but I'm giving an analogy here. The head of the prison system in Pennsylvania went over to Germany and came back and started implementing that, and he starts seeing a reduction of returned criminals. Now, here's the backstory. He's being under attack because of.
He looks soft on crime.
No.
Oh.
Well, that's the tag that's being used. But of course, it's because prison numbers go down.
People lose their jobs.
Private prisons are losing money. So we have to look at all angles of this thing.
And to Connecticut's credit, there have been some visits from our folks to Germany.
I'm wondering why.
Right?
I'm wondering why there's so little discussion of what I consider
yeah.
the most practical response to this. Because we're not going to settle this big question: who's right, APT or the Hill Health? Though we should explore them. Tony Harp's idea, the mayor, was that instead of having everybody line up every day in big groups at a clinic, why don't you have licensed, supervised physicians or psychologists specifically or people licensed in drug treatment and counseling. Why don't you have them administer the methadone from private offices as part
That's
of your
essentially what I just
exactly
said, though.
that's
Like,
exactly
it
what
should
you
be
just said.
seamless.
It
I
should
should
be
know you're
real-
going to get your
exactly.
methadone treatment
That's
because
exactly what
you should be
Markeisha
getting
said.
it in your community. It should
Right.
be in your nice,
But
sterile-looking
my point
doctor's
there-
office.
Yeah,
and
sterile look, because that was the point.
wouldn't
Because the
know
rest
about
of what
it.
you said could have said, like, because the app says, well, we responded, we offered North Haven and West Haven Clinic. But Tony said not just that should be predictable, you're getting treatment. It's the last part you said. Not in one big institution.
Oh,
But as part as you're
individual-
done.
as
but
your
even
part-
state law,
like,
state
if
law
you
has to
go-
change.
It is in one big institution to have people line up. That also creates its own
environment where there's
own
crime. Right outside the
exactly.
door, there was a murder. There's drug
And
dealing.
because-
You got the picture.
You're creating community, like whether you realize it or not, you're creating community among these people who have to come for
Correct.
this treatment. So
Right.
they get to know each other. They know
Well, that
people's
part's
habits.
good unless they're doing
It's good
illicit
if it's a
activity.
supportive thing. It's
Yeah.
not so good if it's not.
And they
Like,
do have group therapy, yeah. And one question is how much, like App says, we do, we don't have enough money to immediately get you that therapist you need, but we have people around. But clearly, it's, as this one was saying, it's much more available at other places. There's a different emphasis on that. Yeah.
Why do we have this system in place that, it's not even official. It's just this unofficial system that we have in place to make people line up for help
or
or
any
anything.
type of help.
And, yeah, any type
We
of help.
create little
Make them
bread
line up.
lines.
A great example.
Or motor
I had
vehicle renewal.
I had an individual who came over to me and told me that this is when I first started the kids program, and told me, make them line up to eat. And I kicked him out of my studio. I was no, you got to leave. I said,
No, you can't
what are
say-
we doing here? I'm going to make food a punishment if they don't behave. Send them to the back of the line.
But we
So,
do
no,
live in
I'm
a
gonna
country where if you don't pay your lunch money, they'll throw your food out and give you a cheese sandwich.
Isn't that something?
America's a strange place.
Just think of that mentality for 5
they
seconds.
do that in school, right?
No,
The kids
but it's
line up,
wrong.
There's a half-hour lunch, and the kid at the back of the line only has 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
but you make them line up.
And
Opposed
then
to,
the portions are so small.
And it's
the
funny
way-
that we argue about like this whole process of the way we're doing this, and there are the two schools of thoughts. But I suspect just like Germany has figured out how to do their criminal justice system in a way that is humane and treats
Right.
people like people and expects better from them.
Mhm.
We could probably, I'm pretty sure there's some country that has figured out, like there are other countries that provide methadone to people.
Correct.
And they figured
Figured
out how to do it in a way that is not this.
Well, at least,
So,
we figured out.
I'm sure China's figured it out.
It's always that whenever I see,
I don't even want to know what that's about.
Oh, I know. You could just imagine what street that
The
just
torture.
turned on.
The torture.
Stop it.
Anyway, but look, my thing is, and Joe was talking about changing learned behavior, right? And that's like the biggest mountain to climb,
So why not climb it?
right? I agree with you,
Oh,
but
okay.
but do you think that our system is willing to make those huge changes?
And it's usually conservative mentality because they want to conserve the way of life.
Well, we're a low
the
hanging fruit
mentality
kind of
is
country.
that you're listening to Pundit Friday on WNHH-FM, your home for community radio. We're running down the week's news with the greatest pundits in the media university, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Boy, some racial issues came to the fore. And surprise, for only the umpteenth time in 30 years, Boise Kimber, African-American leader in his mind at least, in New Haven, brought those issues to the fore. He came to a school board meeting, and he blasted the school board for having too many Latinos in top positions, and Latinos, quote, getting too much from the school system at the expense of African Americans. That caused a wave of African American public officials and leaders to come to the next school board meeting and just dress him down in a public comment session, saying it was ridiculous. In fact, they had felt they'd been kind of iced out, shortchanged by education. They hired a superintendent who doesn't speak Spanish, is not Latina. And in a school system where, and this is what no one's paying attention to except for Chris Peak, who wrote the article, we now, the largest group of students, clearly in New Haven Public Schools, is Latinos.
45?
I mean, that's 45% school system. They're not anywhere near that. I think that's almost double what they are the official,
Right.
population. But even unofficially, it's not the deal. And so that went back and forth. And somehow Boise Kimber got alerted this was going on and somehow got on the schedule for public comment after the deadline closed to sign up. And he struck back saying, why can't I speak up for my community the way everybody else does? Any thoughts on that?
I'm going to let Harry go first.
You know, let me go.
Harry,
Go
you are now the
first, Harry
representative of all
Drost.
Latinos.
Okay, here we go.
Go off, Harry.
There are too many Latinos.
Well, they're talking about English as a second language. Are you a fan of that?
Okay, now
Because people who vote the way you do aren't.
that's not true.
Totally true.
You allow all these populations to come in, right? And a lot of them don't speak English.
So
and it's a necessity for them to learn it, though, right? And if you don't make it a priority in the school system, which is what's happening here, right? You have, and Boise's saying that we have too much Latino stuff and we don't have enough of it. Because
but people on your voting aisle say that you learn English better in immersion than ESL, and that's just a poverty program and jobs program for inside Latinos. I don't agree with that, but that is the argument. I don't know
because, I started with English, but it's hard for me to actually learn the other way, Spanish. I've been trying for the longest, and I speak it.
Did you try Babbel?
Well, you're going to be speaking it better than me, soon, right?
It's working.
Exactly. So,
understanding is first, and then you start learning the speaking part.
Are you taking a?
It's the hardest thing, Paul, when you have a growing population, right? Mm-hmm. And they're treated, and I hear all the stuff that goes on, and I'm actually behind the scenes trying to light them, try to put some fire in them, because I tell them, look, the African Americans, they get everything, everything they've gotten because they fight. Okay, so you got to get up in people's faces and made your point of view, make it louder than you.
So you're saying Latinos don't have institutionalized political power in New Haven commensurate with their growing numbers, and that they need to fight harder for it?
Absolutely. They have
see,
to
I saw that in the primary
harder.
when I didn't see anyone voting for Eva Bermudez Zimmerman.
Right, because
they had something like 60 people come out all day in Ward 15.
Because they're conditioned, Paul, to follow the party. They're conditioned to follow the party, right?
And this is a problem in the legislature as well with the Black and Puerto Rican caucus.
Right. So it's just they're conditioned to follow the party. So the party tells them it's not your turn. And they
believe it.
Fall in line.
They believe it.
They actually fall in line. And I was listening to all of this prior to the election and the Eva thing. And I was listening to the party tell the Latinos, don't
not
vote.
yet.
Not yet. It's not your turn.
And that was told to the African American community as well. That was all. It's really interesting. I remember when Al Gore was running for president in '88, and he came to the graduate club here at Yale, and I was there. And someone in the audience, I think it might have been Paul Bass, I don't know. Someone in the audience back then asked, what about Jesse Jackson? And he was not a black person. I think it was Paul. They asked about, what about Jesse Jackson? And the words, I could not believe the words crossed Al Gore's lips. And it was in that moment where I said, you're not getting my support, buddy. Where he said exactly what you just said. It's not Jesse's turn.
I'm hearing that in 2016. I had dinner with a college friend who's an Obama appointee. Mm-hmm. And he's mad at the idea that Kamala Harris would run for president. He's mad that Stacey Abrams is the nominee. He sees himself as a very pro-civil rights, pro-African-American person, and he believes that people are so racist in America that you're not going to win elections if you put black candidates up, so it won't be as good for black people, which is kind of a mind-boggling
That's insane.
idea.
See, this is the problem.
Yeah.
And you have all of these young African-American women going after...
you don't get to tell me when my time
is. You're going to tell them it's not their turn. To me, it's just insane. It's the most
it's totally insane. It's like, how do you fix your lips
point,
to tell
in
people?
This primary season in the country, we are seeing African Americans and women and Latinos. Presley in Massachusetts, Ocasio-Cortez in New York, and in other races as well, saying, well, it is our time and we're going to challenge that. It hasn't happened in Connecticut. Rosa DeLauro's been there since 1990 was her first election. One of the longest serving members, and she had a challenge from an African American man on the left. Now she is pretty far to the left herself, and she's very popular. So
but you know what it boils down to? Yeah, that does not really stand, because look what happened with Crowley in New York. That's how he got bumped. He was very popular.
So why do you think Rosa didn't get bumped?
But because someone did not come in organized. And look, I am one that believes that. I just don't believe that you should remove. This is just a personal belief. I just don't think someone. I'm not saying this because I am a Rosa DeLauro super fan, but I'm just saying because
it's totally different with Rosa DeLauro, because what happened in New York with Crowley is actually that he showed disrespect to Ocasio.
Exactly.
I mean, he actually didn't even bother campaigning.
Right, Rosa DeLauro, when
So it's
she
totally
has
different.
someone who's picked up off the most wanting list who has no campaign because he's too busy and never raises a dime, she still runs like she's getting a hard challenge.
Exactly. She doesn't take it for granted that she can't be beat.
And I could be wrong.
That's what I was saying about
unless I'm missing something. I think she's very popular. I think she's worked hard.
She's very popular,
staying
but
very
that
connected to
is
the
not enough
grassroots.
anymore. That is not enough. I think in today's politics, being popular alone is not enough. It's just because you're a strong incumbent. As a matter of fact, you have a bigger record to attack.
But I think that's what Paul is saying, though, that, not only has she kept her ties with the grassroots, when somebody runs against, she doesn't care how small they are,
how small
she's
they
going to
are.
run.
And I respect
Pat
that.
Dillon does the same thing.
And that goes to, right. And that
She's like,
goes to
I'm
what
gonna
I was
run.
saying before when I said, I'm not one just to see someone, you here too long, you should be removed. Because if you're doing a good job, you understand what it is that the people send you there for, and you're doing a good job. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're employing these people. We want the best of the best.
I also think it's important that people jump in and run. Like,
I think it is.
what's scary to me about what's happening here in Connecticut is that there doesn't seem to be enough people who want to put themselves out there.
But that's
we get kind of like at the governor's race, like we get people who are
That's
like,
true.
where did these two? Why are these the two guys left standing?
But this
Exactly.
is
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
You're absolutely
Markeisha.
right,
And I'm
but it
thinking,
comes-
whether I want to vote for any of these people.
But it comes down to the people who are going to get into the race.
You know, like
are
Oz.
they? It's about qualification as well.
And
Are we just going to put a new person inside?
And that's the
somebody
thing,
new?
though. Like
Or
when
is it gonna
people
be
are
somebody like-
upset, because we're going to experience this in the next mayor's race, where people are mad at the current mayor, and they want change so bad that almost anybody could run, and you could have it turn over in a way where you're like, oh, this person's not actually qualified. But if you like, first of all, you
that's the
got to have some
danger.
ego to run.
but
Qualifications, we hope you have.
Yes, but we have.
But when
have to employ qualifications, whether we
We
whether
do, but we
accept
know
it or
that
not.
people are willing to vote for people
I
who
know,
are not
but
qualified.
This is because the electorate is not educated on the importance of the people that you're putting in there. These people make decisions on your life.
That's intentional,
This is
Joe.
what's that?
They're intentionally not educated on anything.
Of course, that's part of the system. The system is
Yeah.
designed to keep people uneducated.
Can I bring it back to
and this is where I would prefer. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Please finish.
Go right ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
No, I insist.
No, you
All
first,
this
man. You're the man.
politeness.
I apologize for
Listening
butting
to
in.
Pundit Friday.
103.5 FM. Live streamed at
Uh,
New Haven Independent.
.org. So back to, Boise Kimber standing up there. I thought they were interesting
We
optics.
did go far afield, didn't
No,
we?
this was good field. I think it was good discussion. I just wanted to bring up something about the politics of Boise Kimber standing up. So he's an African-American self-proclaimed leader. He had a lot to do with bringing the new superintendent here, who's also African-American. He fought for her behind the scenes, guided her, top advisor. And the fear everyone had was that if she came in, she was going to give patronage and bad spending to stuff he controls and other people like her. So all the people who brought in Carol Burke said, hey, publicly, we want you to shake up the system, make big changes. Privately, they had their hands out. She came in and she hasn't given them anything or let them run the city. She's making some of these big decisions that they wanted made. So now they've turned against her. So now Boise Kimber publicly is standing up, attacking her decisions. And the Latinos who were so mad about her being chosen were there defending these decisions.
But what's
isn't that
also interesting is that, like, in addition to defending themselves against what Boise is doing, behind the scenes they're upset because they feel like she has fired some folk who are Latino. And so, like, the challenging political aspect of this whole thing is nobody wants any cuts. Like, nobody, like, people want the optics
And
of
Latinos
cuts
get
to say,
last hired, first
our
fired.
deficit is filled,
Yeah.
but we don't know, no group wants any pain. That's what it boils down to.
That's what it boils down.
And I think what is actually happening is that the superintendent is spreading the pain. Everybody's getting some pain, and nobody wants to take that medicine.
Paul, I'd just like to address that. The whole. Let me just say this: I have such a bad taste in my mouth when groups start getting singled out to prove a point. I have a big problem with that. And I experienced that in such the most vicious way here in the city of New Haven. I came back from the Army, and I was
Germany.
Actually, I was in
right?
Fort Hood.
I thought you were in Germany.
I was in Germany for 2 years.
And you saw people getting out of prison, not going back.
No, that's a
been
recent
since-
study.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a recent study. But I came out of service, and I came home, and one of my friends' mother, who, we all went to church. She was a church-going woman, and we all went to church, and we went to a church here in New Haven, and I'm sitting in the pew, just give $5 into the plate, and there was a visiting minister who stood up and said, "Black people, you need to wake up." And this is 84, this happened, and I still remember
black?
it today. He was black,
And
and he said,
didn't that happen at Aretha Franklin's funeral
he
too?
said, "Black people, you need to wake up. You need to realize who's taking your jobs. The white man don't want your jobs cleaning up at the hospital. You know who's taking your jobs? It's the West Indians.
The Joe Ugly.
It is
So you
the
took
West
everybody's
Indians.
job?
Like, I just
Okay.
served my entire country.
I just served the country. I was in
I was ready
foxholes
to go.
making sure that
It's true, though. You took up.
others realize that
Freedom ain't free.
Yeah, exactly.
Freedom ain't free. It's
People
gonna
don't
cost somebody
understand
something.
this. And although it was in peacetime, I would say this. It was peacetime because others knew who was there. And I was part of who was there in those foxholes late at night.
So what did you do
Doing
when
what
you came
it is.
back and heard this
I
guy
requested
telling
my,
you?
I
Can I have my
requested
$5 back?
I requested my money back.
Did you
yes,
get
I
it?
did. Yes, I
And
did.
my $5 back.
No,
please.
it was I couldn't believe this.
What-
So
what'd you do with the
this is what
$5?
I can't even remember, but I wish I did.
I thought you invested in a company that made you a millionaire.
no, but what I would say is, so those are the reasons why I have a problem with when we start singling out groups. I mean, here I am. I'm sitting in the pews, and he didn't know I was West Indian.
Because
But
you
that
can't
just-
tell West Indian
Exactly.
people from black people.
And especially
That's
since my
ridiculous.
friend was American. So we're all sitting there dressed alike. It's
That's like saying Africans are taking your job.
jobs. It's like what? So exactly. And keep in mind, like here's the crux of this thing is where he said, "White men don't want your jobs cleaning up at Yale or cleaning up at the hospitals at Yale." Instead of saying, "How can we get you to school to help you get better jobs?" That's let's focus on the problem
Well,
ahead.
we're all going to school right now at Pundits Friday at WNHH 103.5 FM live stream, newhaven.org. Got a few minutes left to talk about the week's headline. What'd you think about the report that a lieutenant in the police department, he ran the Dixwell district, he was keeping his wife allegedly hostage with kids there for a week, beating her up, threatening her. Then when officials started hearing and they started coming to the house, he started pulling out like this big arsenal of guns and threatening to light up the neighborhood. How do you feel about this incident? Now, obviously, that's not a good thing if it's true, but any thoughts come to your mind about police and domestic violence? It turns out we found out there were 4 arrests of different New Haven officers for domestic violence over the last 3 months.
So how do I get? Well, first of all, I'm sitting in the desert and this alert comes over my phone, and I'm like, "What? New Haven? What?" It came through. I couldn't believe this. I was like, "Oh, okay. What is going on?" And they shut down the street and all of this stuff. And all I could think is, okay, wow. This obviously is a mental health issue.
He was on Xanax. He had killed somebody once in duty.
That's interesting that he was on Xanax,
Right.
because weren't we just talking about Xanax
And
when
I'm
we were
getting
talking about
ready-
the
And he was
I'm
drinking
getting ready to-
heavily.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
clearly
but I was-
Xanax has some
Allegedly.
implications if you start using other things. It's scary.
Then
It is.
you got to start
and-
making excuses for Roseanne Barr, right?
What's that?
That was exactly.
I think
her
she was taking
excuse.
Ambien.
That was her excuse.
And Ambien's like, nah, that's not how our drugs work.
It goes back. You just hit something there that's very interesting. He was on Xanax, and maybe he may need some type of, well, not maybe. Obviously, he needs some other type of support group. Goes back to our original topic. But why does he feel like he can't go and get it? Probably because of that line.
Yeah, because the police
And the
say
other-
that.
yeah, you
Here's
can't
how we dealt with it. They said we went to
quietly go
line
there.
up and we asked them to go to the Employee Assistance Program, EAP. We want you to
And
take
this is how
advantage
it
of
works with the police department, right? Like they can't demand, they can't say, well, you can't go to work until you go get this help.
Mhm.
Like I think the arrangement, the way their contract or whatever works, like, because people have said before, like, maybe police officers need periodic.
No, maybe they do, because
I
especially
agree
when we have
that they do, because
Right.
they experience and see things
right.
that none of us may have, like some of us may experience because we come in contact with the police in these very violent ways, but also like they're involved in violent things happening to other people.
Right.
You know, I think about the officers who work in special victims units types things. Like I've heard officers describe things where I was like, how can you sit there like with such a straight face and describe in Comstat what you just described?
So true.
That is horrifying.
On the other hand, you can't force someone to get help if they're not ready for it.
That's true, but if you're going to be in service to the city of
especially
New
with
Haven
a firearm
and the
in your
people
hand.
of New Haven,
and this goes back to the other issues. You know,
I need you to get your help.
There's another part,
and also it shouldn't be. I'm sorry to cut you off. It also like we have to work around these issues of why people don't want to go get help, why they don't want to be seen as maybe weak for going to get help, why they don't want to say this thing is really I can't sleep at night over this thing. And I can't cope with it just by drinking or hanging out with my homies on the force. Like, I got to do something. This is not okay. Or I'm engaging in behaviors that are dangerous to my family, that are dangerous to myself, or dangerous to my colleagues. Like, we have to stop these kinds of stigmas because people, and, you know, culturally, certain groups of people don't feel comfortable getting help. So people of color. And then I was at an event where I was talking to people about like mental health stuff. And even if you're a person of color, you actually might not be able to find somebody who is culturally competent to help you. Like they might not understand some of the things that you might want to talk about. So if you're experiencing different things in the context of what you do, you're taking all of that on. And if you don't feel like it's okay for you to go get help, and how do we balance your need to have a job and take care of your family as well as all of the things that you experience? Like all of that stuff is at play. My heart goes out to his wife and his children.
And like, there's another part to this.
Horrible.
The other part to this equation is because we don't have these things in play as to support for mental health.
By the way, David Sepulveda writes in Marquisha for president, exclamation point.
Nope. Who wants that job? Thanks, David.
Sorry, Joe.
But no, that's all right. But we also have to look at the issue of this person also had an arsenal of weapons.
Ooh, that's
so just think he's carrying around this burden on him.
Assault rifles.
This, he's got this mental issues and then he has the right to have these weapons. No one wants to check this. So we can...
And he's qualified to use it.
And he's qualified to use it. But this is what I'm saying. He may be qualified to use it, just like the woman who knocked on somebody's door upstairs and opened fire on them in their own apartment saying it's hers. You know, so we have to look at...
What state are people in?
What state people are in.
And should they have access?
And when we say state, we're not talking about geographic. I hope not.
No,
can I get
we're talking mental. Well, you know, people live with PTSD every day, right?
Oh, I know.
You have soldiers who live with
this
it.
Is
keep
true.
Going back to war and everything. And that lady who shot that guy, right? She thought she was going into her own apartment, right?
Maybe,
so,
but maybe. Well, because there was some
questions about that.
There are some questions,
right? But if she
this is the story right now.
But if she did, what made her automatically
pull a weapon?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like you're a police officer. You're trained to get in a hand-to-hand combat if you need to. Your first option is to shoot that person.
Exactly. Your first option was supposed to de-escalate.
I thought her story didn't hand up about the...
A lot of people don't think
people saw her banging on the door.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
And when you think in your home, you're
safe.
Especially when you live on the second and you're on the third floor banging on the door.
But you know what? You're always safe. You know what the ultimate safe space is? The ultimate safe space. No trigger warnings needed.
Oh, dear Lord.
Pundit Friday, WNHH-FM. Any place Harry Drost is a safe space.
Hey, I know Harry got my back.
Hey.
Thank you for joining us in the safe space of Pundit Friday. Thanks to the best pundits in the media universe. Harry Drost, Joe Ugly, Marquisha Ricks, and next week hopefully be back with our buddies Bab Rolls Ivy, Norma Rodriguez-Reyes.
Norma, we miss you.
We're going to take it
Babs,
out.
we miss you.
We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. You're hearing that right now. From the group CD, A Plea for Peace. We know what it's like to be free. We just got to remember to book our flight. Book it and fly free with us all weekend long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.